At BlackSky Global, we are deploying a constellation of 60 satellites to change how we look at the planet. So instead of being 1 or 2 revisits per day, we're doing 40 to 70 revisits per day to the populated areas on the planet. And ultimately, this is going to be very disruptive for how we look at the planet in a positive way, because suddenly we can do things with satellites that were never before possible. So I have really 2 companies. One is Spaceflight, the other one is BlackSky. So at Spaceflight, we build small satellites, we launch small satellites, and we also have a ground network that allows us to communicate with all the satellites out there. And that's we provide that as a service. And then at BlackSky, we operate a constellation. So it's just like you can own a car or you can lease a car. So if you want to purchase it, we do that for you at Spaceflight. If you want to lease that capability on orbit, we do that at BlackSky. And we are really imaging capacity on demand. So we're not in the analytics business, we're not in the answers business, we're in the pixel business. So with our 60 satellites, customers can come to us and task us. So when we think about Planet Labs or Skybox or BlackBridge or Digital Globe or Airbus, we see all of them as customers. We don't see them as competitors, because really we are just capacity that we've capitalized, we put on orbit, and we're making available to everybody to enable their business. We have just announced publicly our existence in June, and now it's September, so it's still early days, but we would like to have all of them as customers. And again, our business model is we know how to build, launch, and operate satellites. We want to put them on orbit and then provide that to everybody else. And we can believe we can deploy and operate that infrastructure at a very attractive price point so that all of these companies can use it to grow their business. And when they grow their business, ultimately we'll be successful as well. So the resolution of our satellites is 1 meter. Our business plan is really to enable looking at the global economy, and the global economy means cars, trucks, trains, things that drive commerce around the planet, and 1 meter is the critical resolution required to do that. So initially to be 1 meter, maybe in the future as technology advances it gets slightly better, but we have no intention of going to big satellites with 30 centimeter resolution. We believe it's more about revisit rate and persistence, and so we will stay optimized around that solution space. Once the constellation is deployed, so with 60 satellites, between the latitudes of north and south 55 degrees, we can image any city or location on the planet 40 to 70 times a day. So we are fully funded to put the first 6 satellites on orbit in 2016, and then we are targeting to put 20 satellites on orbit a year after that. So 20 in 2017, 20 in 2018, and 20 in 2019. That gets the constellation fully deployed. But our satellites have a design operational life of 3 years, so we plan to replace the constellation every 3 years. And ideally that's with newer technologies. As it's being developed in the consumer and the industrial electronics space, we'll integrate those technologies into our spacecraft. So hopefully they will improve, and from a communication performance, a processing performance, and imagery performance as we have these new technologies come online. So my first company was Andrew Space, and about 6 years ago we started working with the US government on a program that's called Kestrel, and their whole vision was to put UAVs in space. And so we did a lot of work around how to make this small satellite, how to launch these satellites, how would they be operated to provide this fast revisit rate that really gives you the operating paradigm of UAVs. So we did this work broadly, and then we realized there was a commercial opportunity here. Ultimately, there's a lot of demand for more pixels, especially at higher revisit rate, but no one had the cash to go off and enable that. So we went off and raised money, which is allowing us to go and build this constellation commercially, and then we provide it as a service back to everybody else. So they don't have to capitalize it, we do. They can buy it as a service, and everyone's very attracted by that. So that was the evolution on how we got to BlackSky and where we are today. Our business is coming from everywhere. Initially, we're really focused on the existing traditional satellite imaging sector and those distribution channels. As we talked about, everybody here at the Euroconsult conference, we see them as customers. They have distribution channels, they have distribution agreements, hundreds of distribution agreements, and they're going to support agriculture, forestry, energy, military, homeland security. And so it's really how do you apply this imagery to address those markets. But longer term, when we start increasing the revisit rate and we bring that price down, we believe it'll open up new markets. And so with our distribution partners and with our software data platform, we'll be able to go and enable new markets. And I don't think we all understand what those markets are, but we think there's a lot of upside potential in the future. In addition to ourselves, there's other companies that have raised money, Planet Labs, Skybox, Earthcast, and others. And I think if you really look at this trend, we're transitioning from the first phase of satellite imagery, which is all about mapping, to the next wave of satellite imagery, which is all about revisit rate, activity-based intelligence, using lower cost satellites to monitor in a really high revisit rate. And I think the investment community sees a lot of upside opportunity from that. The way we look at the market, the global economy is 78 trillion. People spend 0.1% or 1% on economic intelligence, military intelligence. And so really the potential market is, 100 billion. You can also look at the UAV market, which is mostly a military market. It's 10 billion. And here we are, Euroconsult, they present this year's, or 2014 revenues, 1.6 billion. So there's clearly a gap between where we are today and where we think we can be. And those are really big numbers between there. And so there's a lot of upside opportunity, and that's what the investors are looking at. They see a growing market, growing opportunity, fundamentally changing how we look at the planet. It's looking at the planet in real time. And we think that's a very big opportunity with a lot of great, not only business opportunities, but just doing good things for society, allowing people to look at space in a whole new way. Well, I mean, they're the biggest leaders in the industry. They have 80% of the revenue. I think they're in a great spot to actually capitalize on this new revolution. They really have the customer base, and ultimately it'll be a partnership between these emerging providers and existing providers. And depending on that relationship, those could still be the leaders 5-10 years down the road. We're going to go through a period of innovation, and I think organizations that innovate will do very well, and those that don't could be left behind. But it's amazing, this technology is happening very fast, this revolution is coming very fast. And so the next 3 or 4 years, in this market space and at this conference, I think will be really interesting to see how it evolves. Yeah, well, so I think you have to look at it by resolution. I think in the high resolution space, defined as 1 meter or better, a lot of commercial opportunity. What we're seeing is in the middle resolution range, the 3 to 5 meter, more and more there's government systems, there's, I wouldn't call it an oversupply, but there's a lot of free sources, but there's also a lot of new commercial sources coming online, like Planet Labs. And so it's the ability for any of us organizations, us included, to operate and be profitable is a function of the go-to-market strategy, the business strategy, the resolution range that you're picking, and fundamentally the revisit range you're picking. With what we're doing at BlackSky, we have a unique offering. 80% of our satellites are not in sun-synchronous orbits. They're in mid-latitude orbits. That gives us the really high revisit rate, but also allows us to overfly throughout the entire day, which is a fundamental shift in how satellite imaging has been done. And we believe there's a lot of market opportunity, but it's unproven because that hasn't been out there. So I think that's going to be something to closely watch over the next 2 or 3 years. And depending on our success, I think others will follow. Ultimately, going back to the business opportunity, we talked about why is it not 100 billion versus the $1.5 billion, and I think it comes down to 3 things. Revisit rate, the price point for the product, and then the user experience. I think as an industry, we could do much better on all 3 points. And as an industry, if we really address those and make it really easy for people to get imagery and task it and get it back quickly, we can use it for a very wide range of things. We can think about selling a picture for $100, which is 1 or 2 orders of magnitude less than what you can do today out in the market. But suddenly, if you can do that, and someone can do that and task a satellite and get their picture back in 45 minutes at $100, suddenly there might be 1 million potential users. That 1 million potential users using that on an ongoing basis is a fundamental transformation to our industry, and we have to think about what that means to the satellite segment, the ground segment, the distribution segment, what happens on the analytics side, how does this tie to big data. So there's a lot of business opportunities throughout the value chain, and it's not just one company who's going to benefit from it. I think the whole industry is going to benefit from it.